जोरदार तालियां। मैं निवेदन करती हूँ सर से और प्राचार्य मैडम से कि इस पर हस्ताक्षर करें। अब वह ऐतिहासिक क्षण आ गया है जिसका हम सभी को इंतजार था। मैं निवेदन करती हूँ श्री भूषण सावयकर सर एवं प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर उदय नारायण सिंह सर से कि हमारे पीजीडीटी के पूर्व विद्यार्थियों को ट्रांसलेशन इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर की प्रथम अनुवाद परियोजना जो हमें अभिलेख विभाग ने दी है उसे प्रदान कर इस नई यात्रा का शुभारंभ करें, अनुवाद उद्भवन केंद्र का उद्घाटन करें। आइए जोरदार तालियों के साथ इस प्रेरणादायी क्षण के साक्षी बने।
वेदी वयले मानेस्त आणि वेदी मुखाले मानेस्त सगळ्यांक म्हजो नमस्कार। गव्हर्मेंट कॉलेज खांडोळा आणि हांचे लँग्वेज इन्क्युबेशन सेंटर हाजे तर्फे जो डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ आर्कायव्स पुराभिलेख खाते आम्ही आज एक MOU केला। आता या MOUच्या अंतर्गत आम्ही जे आता हँडओव्हर केल्ले आसा एक दस्तऐवज जो एक अभिलेख आसा 1526 वर्सांतलो पोर्तुगीज शासनाच्या वेळार तांच्यांनी गोंयान येवन जातकर युसेजीस अँड कस्टम्स ऑफ लोकल्स लोकांचे थळाव्यो संस्कृती तांच्यो परंपरा समजुपा खातीर एक दस्तऐवज तयार केल्लो 1526 वर्सां। तो पोर्तुगीज भाशेन आशिल्लो। ते पोर्तुगीजांतल्यान आमी इंग्लिशीन केल्ले आसा। तेच इंग्लिश कामाचे आता लँग्वेज इन्क्युबेशन सेंटराचे तर्फे कोंकणीन हिंदीन आणि मराठीन जावचे हीच हावेस दवरून आम्ही हो एक जो डॉक्युमेंट 500 वर्सां पयलींचो जुनो डॉक्युमेंट आसा जो एक पन्नो अभिलेख आसा ते मॅन्युस्क्रिप्टाची कॉपी आज आमी हांगा हँडओव्हर केल्ली आसा आणि हाजे ट्रान्सलेशन जावन एक इतिहासान सगळ्या भाशेन लोकांक हो दस्तऐवजाचे वाचन जावचे ताजे बद्दल म्हायती जावची आणि तातूंतल्यान संशोधन वेगवेगळ्या रूपांतल्यान जावचे म्हणूनच आमी हो एक पावल आमी आज मारतात। आर्कायव्स डिपार्टमेंटा कडेन अशे खुबशे दस्तऐवज वट्ट 10 ते 12 भाशांनी आसात। आता ह्यो थळाव्योच भाशांनी जाल्यार वर्ल्ड वायड ज्यो संवसारभर वेगवेगळ्यो भासो आसात तांचे सगळ्यांचे वेगवेगळी लिपयान बरयल्ले दस्तऐवज आमचे कडेन आसात। घडये व्हिएतनामीस आसा, चायनीज आसा, पर्शियन फारसी आसा, उर्दू आसा, अरेबिक आसा, मोडी लिपी जी मराठीन वापरिल्ली आसा सो ते मोडीन आसात। तशेंच आमचे कडेन गोंय कानाडी स्क्रिप्ट म्हळ्यार तातूंत कन्नड भाशेची उतरावळी आसा, लोकल लँग्वेजी मेळटा ती वाचपाक सुद्दां मनशां मेळनात। पोर्तुगीज जुन्या पोर्तुगीजीन आनी नव्या पोर्तुगीजीन बरयल्ले अभिलेख अशेंच संस्कृत अभिलेख हल्लीच आमी तांचे एक कॅटलॉग तयार केल्लो आसा तांचे सगळ्यांचे जे नॉलेज टेक्स्ट आसात तांचे ट्रान्सलेशन जावची ही आमच्या डिपार्टमेंटाची मोख म्हणून आमी आज हो MOU करतात आणि ह्या MOUच्या अंतर्गत जाता तितले नॉलेज टेक्स्ट ट्रान्सलेट जावन वेगवेगळ्या भाशांनी पावचे म्हणून आमी ही एक संधी तांच्यांनी आमचे कडेन एक पावल मारलें, आमी एक पावल तांचे कडेन मारलें आणि ताचे नंतर हो एक योग जुळून आयला आणि जाता तितले अभिलेख वेगवेगळ्या भाशांनी पावचे। ताचे डिजिटायझेशन करता आसतना आमकां मेटा डेटा क्रिएट करपाक खूब प्रॉब्लेम जाता। त्या वेळार जेन्ना ट्रान्सलेशन जाता तेन्ना मेटा डेटा क्रिएट करून तो सर्च इंजिनान घालपाक आमकां मदत जाता आनी लोकांक मागीर हो डिजिटल डेटा एक्सेस करपाक आनी हो जेन्ना ऑनलायन प्लॅटफॉर्मार वतलो तुमकांच सगळ्यांक संशोधन करपाक हे सगळे दस्तऐवज उपलब्ध जातले. म्हणूनच आमी आज हे योग्य दिशेन एक पावल मारलो अशें दिसता आनी हाजे खातीर आमकां गोंय सरकाराचो वेळोवेळार पाठिंबो आसा. तांचे योगदान आमकां सगळ्यांचे आमकां सहकार्य मेळत आसा आनी शासकीय महाविद्यालयाचे योगदान आमकां मेळटलें अशेंच हावेस बाळगून हांव म्हजी 2 उतरां सोंपयतां. देव बरें करूं.
Thank you. It is my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Uday Narayan Singh, one of India's most distinguished linguists, translation scholars and literary figures. He is currently the Chair Professor and Dean, Faculty of Arts at AMET University, Haryana. He has previously served as the Director of the Central Institute of Indian Languages, CIIL Mysore, and Pro-Vice Chancellor of Vishwa Bharati University, Shanti Niketan. He played a pioneering role in establishing the National Translation Mission and the Linguistic Data Consortium for Indian Languages. With 8 collection of poems in Maithili and Bangla, 6 books of essays, 14 plays, he translated many and published over 300 research papers in international and national journals and books, and created 545 documentaries on the language, literature and culture of Bangla. Sahitya Akademi, he has won many awards including Sahitya Akademi Award 2017 for poetry. He was also awarded Sir Ganganath Jha Memorial Award 2016 for contributions to Maithili literature, the Jyotirishwar Sanman 2016 for lifetime contribution to Maithili theatre, the Suniti Kumar Chatterjee National Lectureship for 2016 by the Asiatic Society, Kolkata, the Kallegner Porkisi Award in 2014. And many, many more. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Professor Dr. Uday Narayan Singh once again. And I request Director of Directorate of Higher Education, Shri Bhushan Savekar Sir, Principal Ma'am and Shri Dashrath Parab Sir to kindly felicitate Professor Dr. Uday Narayan Singh in recognition of his remarkable contributions to the field of linguistics, translation and Indian languages. तालियां बजती रहनी चाहिए. A shawl, a hamper and translated books. Sahitya Academy awarded Samudra Swar Hindi translation of Konkani poems by GOAN translators Dr. Asha Gehlot and Dr. Ramita Gurav, and the Salt edited and translated by Dr. Asha Gehlot and Dr. Ramita Gurav, and The Salt of the Earth, Rustic Short Stories from Goa, a translated collection of Konkani short stories by acclaimed Goan author Dr. Jayanti Naik. We have all the translators among us today. I request Sir Uday Narayan Singh to say a few words.
समुद्र स्वर इज अ साहित्य अकादमी प्रकाशन जिसका संपादक आशा गहलोत और रमिता गुरव हैं, लेकिन सारे गोवा के बडिंग ट्रांसलेटर्स हैं.
Since this is more a literary gathering and this institute has a very rich tradition of literature, I will say a few words, but I begin with a poem on translation. And as you know, one of our foremost poets, Dr. K. Sachidanandan, in Malayalam, had written a poem on translation, and he also himself translated this into English. And let me read out a small portion from that. And that will practically explain what exactly is translation. And I quote the poet Sachidanandan. Translation is a transmigration. Translation is a transmigration. As a fish dives through water, the translator moves through minds. As a fish dives through waters, translation moves through mind. On the bank of each word, in the thick sand, he kneels, studying the color of each shell, blowing each count. Poetry translation is the embarrassing head transposal of Vikramaditya tales. The translator supports another poet's head on his trunk. Each line is a lane worn out, with war, misery, and boredom. Each bylane of music along which parade the immortal men, gods, and trees. Through translation, an abyss opens where a line ends. The souls of the dead quench their thirst in that pool of silence. What a beautiful way of describing translation by a poet. I think this is very crucial that what you're doing has to be done, and has to be done in a way which is an Asian perspective, which is a non-Western perspective of translation. Because if you look at the Western perspective of translation, I'll give you a small example. The metaphors are the ones which are typically Western metaphors. There's a metaphor of governance in the West. Who will win? Which text will prevail? Original text or the new text, translated text? So it's a fight, as if war between the original and the translated. It should not be like that. I think our perspective can be very different. Secondly, a lot of Western theory is talking about disease. There is a contamination. You're spoiling the purity of the text. You are contaminating the text with a kind of disease as you're translating. Third is, if you look at the gain and loss of translation, it's a very famous film, Lost in Translation. If you look at this and look at the metaphor, as if there's a war going on, gain and loss of translation. It is true that sometimes the translated text becomes as good, if not better, than the original. In fact, Fitzgerald had said that these Persians don't know how to write poetry. I will teach them how to write poetry by translating properly. But Umar Khayyam, just imagine, somebody is saying about Umar Khayyam that he doesn't know how to write poetry. What an audacity by a translator. So that is something which is a typical Western attitude. Our attitude is never like that. I don't think Tulsidas will ever say, oh, Valmiki did not know how to write Ramayana, let me write Ramayana better. I don't think our perspective is like that. Then next is a metaphor of inheritance. The issue of whether translated texts are described to be partly inherited or partly made up. That is a big problem in the West in theory. And then metaphor of recursion. That what kind of embeddedness is there in the text. These are the issues of the Western theory. But I'm sure through this activity of Translation Center here, a new Indian perspective or Asian perspective will emerge, which is very different from the Western theories of translation. And that will be a great contribution of this center. So congratulating all of you, the Goa government, higher education, the college, and the Translation Center, and this institute, all of this who together made it possible. Thank you very much.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। अब मैं श्री भूषण सावयकर उच्च शिक्षा निदेशालय के निदेशक से निवेदन करती हूं कि वे अपने विचार साझा करें।
Dignitaries on the dais, faculties, students, and my friends. When I go back to my childhood, I see that the best stories that I read about Akbar Birbal were not originally in Marathi language, which I used to read. Or my son used to read stories of Panchatantra. So I don't think those stories were written in Marathi. So we are brought up in a literature which is translated. So the best literature that maybe we have read in our childhood is a translated literature, and the translation is the way of life in this global world. When we say any language, it's not just a means of communication. It is more than that. It's a record of the history. It's the record of the culture, and it's the record of the emotions of those people who speak that language or who write that language. So on this occasion of opening the translation incubation center in Government College Khandola, I really congratulate the management. I congratulate the faculties and principals and also the students of this college. I also congratulate college for signing MOU with the Department of Archives today. As I just said, that language is also a reflection of the history. And when we say the Department of Archives, there are many things which are stored as a part of history in this department. There are many documents which we know that they are old documents, they are part of history, they are part of our culture. But we are not able to read those documents. We are not able to understand those documents because we don't know the language in which they are written. So there is a need of a translation of all these documents so that we understand our own history, our own culture, our own what you can say, rituals, our own diet, our own history. So when we go back to our history, one thing is for sure: the person who translated the king's language was always powerful, because he used to communicate with the king, and whether he is communicating it rightly or wrongly, it is left to him to translate the words of the common man or the words of the king. So these translators have played a very important role in history when it comes to the relation between a public and a king, because we have a long history of invasion, and we have been ruled by the people who very rarely know our own language, local language. Then it is also important when it comes to the negotiations, commercial negotiations or commercial contracts. We then and now also we have the international trade. We are known for the international trade, and when it comes to international trade, it is the language that plays a very important role in understanding the words of communication between both the parties. So this is the history, and what today's this one is Sambhavnayan Chunutiya. So what is the relevance of translation in today's world? So definitely it is more important than what it was in our history, because we are now in a village called world. So entire village is a world, and in this village of world, the different people are speaking different languages. If you go to Arambol, we will find boards in Russian language, or this one. It's not a criticism or this one, but from the angle of a person who knows the language, it's important. If you want to understand here, you should be able to translate that language in the local language or the language which he knows. So one more part is when I was a child, I used to watch cricket, and then we used to discuss whether the commentary will be in either Hindi or English. There were only two languages in which the commentary was told when the cricket was going on. Today, when I go to Jio Hotstar, first I am given the option of so many languages, including Bhojpuri language. And I sometimes like to listen how the commentary is there in the Bhojpuri language, and it's so basically there is a translation. It's not that the person in the Bhojpuri goes there and gives the commentary. It's a translation, and the translation is in so many languages. It's not only limited to 22 languages. Of course, 22 languages are important because they are in the schedule, but they are beyond 22 languages. There are more languages in India. There are more spoken languages in India which are relevant. And if we really want to preserve that diversity of India, we cannot limit ourselves just to 22 languages. We have to go beyond those 22 languages, and we have to understand all these languages and try to translate in the languages. Whenever we if I ask many of you, so how many languages you know? So most of the Goan people will say that we know 4 languages. That is, one is Konkani, Marathi, English, and Hindi. Because one is a spoken language, one is the language in which we usually do our primary education. Most of the newspaper are in Marathi language, and then we go to the schooling. We have one subject in Hindi, and rest of all our education is in English. But we also have schools which are in Hindi, which are in Urdu, which are in Kannada within the state of Goa. Primary schools in these languages. So there are many people who also study in these languages, and if possible, I will urge the college to also include these languages as a part of translation. So it's not bad to understand many languages. We had a prime minister who knew 16 languages, if I am not mistaken. So the challenges is one is technology. The students will ask whether there is really need to know translation, because Google can translate. If I give a command to ChatGPT, a draft some so and so in a so and so language, then it will give you a nice draft of whatever you want in that particular language. So the question is whether translators are really required. And the answer is yes, because technology cannot replace everything, and the technology has to be taught. Technology will not evolve language by itself. It has to be taught, and we have the responsibility of teaching that to the technology, because technology is something which is inevitable, and we cannot ignore that technology. And if you totally depend on technology, then it is like totally dependent on Google Maps. So most of the time it will take you to the right location, but sometimes it may take you to the river, inside a river. It may show that road is going in the river. So your translation may not be correct 100%, and it may give you some different meaning which is very contrary to what is written in the original language. So once again, I congratulate Govt College for opening this incubation center, and also for signing an MOU with Department of Archives, and I wish them best of luck. I wish them and that they prosper in this translation, and create a lot of opportunities for the students who study and who do translation in this college. Thank you.
धन्यवाद सर। शब्दों और संस्कृतियों को जोड़ने वाले इस महत्वपूर्ण अवसर पर हम अपने सम्माननीय अतिथियों को स्मृति चिन्ह भेंट कर उनके मार्गदर्शन एवं सहयोग के प्रति अपनी कृतज्ञता व्यक्त करते हैं। सर्वप्रथम मैं निवेदन करती हूँ श्री भूषण सावयकर सर से कि वे आज के बीज वक्ता प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर उदय नारायण सिंह सर का स्मृति चिन्ह प्रदान करके धन्यवाद ज्ञापन करें। अगले स्तर पर निवेदन करती हूँ प्राचार्य मैम से कि वे उच्च शिक्षा निदेशालय के निदेशक श्री भूषण सावयकर सर को स्मृति चिन्ह प्रदान करें। सावरकर सर से निवेदन है कि वे विशेष अतिथि दैनिक नवप्रभा के मुख्य संपादक श्री परेश प्रभु सर का स्मृति चिन्ह प्रदान करें। अब मैं प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर उदय नारायण सिंह सर से निवेदन करती हूं कि शासकीय महाविद्यालय खंडवा की प्राचार्य को स्मृति चिन्ह प्रदान करें। उदय नारायण सर से पुनः एक बार निवेदन है कि इंस्टीट्यूट मिसेस ब्रागंजा के अध्यक्ष श्री दशरथ परब जी को स्मृति चिन्ह प्रदान करें। और पुनः एक बार निवेदन करती हूँ उदय नारायण सर से कि बालाजी शेनवी सर को स्मृति चिन्ह प्रदान करें। धन्यवाद सर। उद्घाटन कार्यक्रम के अंत में मैं महाविद्यालय के IQAC निदेशक एवं उप प्राचार्य डॉक्टर डिलेक्टर डिकोस्टा से धन्यवाद ज्ञापन